Dudes, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the 92 F1 build. I'm just going to be working to tie up some loose ends on the truck. I'm going to start in the interior and do stuff like the seats and stuff with the dash. And then we're going to go to the back of the truck and do stuff with the drive shaft and the third member. So we're going to start on the inside. Christian's actually going to be working on this truck at the same time. We're filming 2 videos at once just to try and get daily videos out. So you'll probably see him in the background working on this truck. But let's see what we have to get done on the inside of this truck. The inside of the truck's going to need a fair amount of work. First thing I have to do is get this shifter actually mounted. It's really just sitting in there right now, so I have to get that bolted up, which if you watch the video of us trying to get that thing mounted, you know it's kind of difficult to do since it's in such a tight space behind the dash here. So that's probably going to take a little bit of time just to get those Allens in. And then after that, I'm going to get the hoon handle all bolted in and get the brake lines connected to that. And then just put the Zeus fasteners in this actual plate itself. And then the dash will pretty much be done. After getting that stuff all mounted, I'm going to come back in here and mount the seats in the truck. I have to clear all this stuff out of the truck first, and I might vacuum the carpet itself just to make sure everything's clean, and then get all the seats and harnesses mounted in the truck. And that'll be pretty much it for the inside of the truck. We don't have door panels yet, so we're going to have to get those ordered at some point, but that's not a priority right now. So we're just going to leave this truck without door panels for the time being. But down here under the truck, like I was saying, what I'm going to move on to is cleaning the housing and getting that third member mounted. And then after that, get the drive shaft on. That'll be pretty simple. And then these, I'm probably going to mount the panels on the truck, but to do that, I have to lift the back of the truck up, pull these shocks out, and actually put the panel in because it's too tight of a clearance to just slide it in there right now. So that shock has to be off of the truck in order to do that. So that's the plan for today. I got quite a list ahead of me, so I'm just going to jump to the inside of the truck right now. Quick little update. I've been working on the inside of this truck for a while now. Not much has changed visually, but I've been working on quite a bit. I spent a lot of time underneath the dash just getting the shifter and shift linkage all wrapped up. Like I said, not much has changed visually in here, but I'll just run through the gears real quick. And as you can see, things are super smooth. There's no drag in any points within the shifting, so I'm super happy with how that turned out. My dad and I spent quite a bit of time just to get that running smoothly, but I'm glad it's out of the way. It wasn't very fun trying to fit 2 guys up underneath this dash, so I'm glad we don't have to deal with that anymore. But we also got this hoon handle all mounted, and things are running smoothly there. The reason it's actually hitting the metal here right now is because there's no fluid in the brake lines, so once there's pressure, you're not going to be able to pull it back to that point, so that's just why it's hitting right now. But going to brake lines, I got those all tightened up. My brother and I just went through, got everything tight there, so no more brake lines to deal with in the cab. I also went through and just vacuumed all the carpets in here. We could go through and steam clean it because there are some stains in a few spots, but we might do that at a later point. But the interior of this truck is ready for seats now. That's going to be in the next step. I also went through and just painted this mount for the battery switch so I can get remounted. And now it's just time to put the seats in, and the interior of this truck is going to be finished. My brother and I got the inside of the truck wrapped up last night. We got the seats in, the harnesses bolted on, and we also got the headsets in the truck. Here's what everything looks like in here with the seats actually in. Like I said, we had the headsets mounted as well. Tested those out since we've never used them before, and they're pretty cool. Ran some music through the actual aux on the intercom too, so you can listen to music through the headset, which I think is super cool. But back here, there's the third seat as well. It's not as tight as I once thought it was. I got in there last night and actually had a little bit of leg, or quite a bit of leg room. I could rest my foot up against this tube right here, and things are actually really comfortable. So the interior is pretty much in. It took a while to get these bolted up because of all the tight spaces in here trying to get to those bolts. But we got things done, and then I called it after that. No more last night. So I thought we'd just pick it up here this morning. The first thing on today's agenda is going to be getting the panels mounted on the rear of the truck. If you remember previously when we were putting the rear of the truck together, we put the rear ones on but not the front ones, and that was for wiring so that Eric could have access to run wires through the truck and on the frame rail up here. So that's why we left those off, but now they can go back on since wiring's all done. We might have to go back in on the panels and actually notch it for the wire right here, which is for the KC Cyclones back here. So we might have to do that with the file or something. But to be able to get the panel on itself, we have to pull the sway bar off, pull the shock out, because you actually can't squeeze it in behind the shock right there. It's too tight of a clearance, so that's going to have to come off, which means the whole back of the truck's going to have to come off, limit straps are going to have to come off, and then we can get the sway bar and shocks out. Hi, puppy. Hi. What do you think? Brew. you think of the truck? Look. Just like that, we got the truck up in the air. We got those panels on as well. It wasn't too bad getting them on once we had the shocks and the sway bar out of the way. But as you can see, the back of this truck right now is up super high. It looks kind of ridiculous. While the truck's been up in the air, we actually put nitrogen in both the shocks, the coilover, and the bypass. And the reason we did that while the truck was up is because you're actually supposed to put the nitrogen in the shocks when they're at their full length, not when they're compressed. So that's why we did it now rather than when the truck was back at ride height. On the coilovers, when you're actually installing these, you want to clock your springs so that everything's 180 degrees from itself. And what I mean by that is you can see down in here there's a slit. So you want the end of this coilover, as you can see, 180 degrees offset from that. And then coming up to the spacer up here, the ends of the springs are 180 degrees off, so you have one here and one on the back side. And then that's basically how you want to do that. And that just prevents the spacer from being squished in any spots or rubbing against the body super bad. So you always want to space those 180 degrees off from each other. The next thing I have to do to this thing is put it back down to ride height, get all the bolts tightened for the shocks. Then I also have to come back in here and get the limit straps back mounted in here, which is going to be fun getting it back in that small little those small little tabs right there. But that's what's next on the agenda, so I'm going to lower it right now and get to working. Figured we'd film just lowering the truck real quick for those of you that want to see it. Looks way better with the panels on there rather than just sitting and you see the fuel cell. It's way cleaner. I like that. This is the first time we've actually seen it with the panels all painted on here. And with the bypass. These have been off forever. Good morning, back out here working on the truck today. Last night we got a lot of things wrapped up. Went through and actually tightened all the shock mounts for the coilovers and bypasses. Got the resis for the coilover all mounted up. Heat shrink on hose clamps as always just to clean things up. The way we do that was we just slide it over the hose clamp itself and then just take a lighter and it'll shrink around the hose clamp perfectly. So that cleans up all your hose clamps on the truck or on whatever you're using. So if you haven't done that, start doing that because it makes things look a lot cleaner. But besides that, we also got the limit straps all bolted in. And look down there, we got the third member in as well. So let me hop on down there and kind of explain how we got that in there. This third member is actually the first third member that we've ever installed on a vehicle. That's why we did it off camera. We didn't want to act like experts on something that we'd never done before. So my dad and I spent the time last night just getting it in there. This third member was built by Alec at Fearless Gear. Has a 543 gear set in it and it's spooled. And we're running 35 spline axles. So that's kind of the setup on this third member. To get the third member installed and sealed, hi pup. I actually talked to Evan Weller Racing and he got me the rundown on how to get this thing in there. We ended up using the right stuff. That's kind of the gasket sealer that mates it up to the actual housing. So that's what's behind this, that you can see it kind of oozing out a little bit. But we got that on the actual third member and sat it in there. We made sure everything was super clean before we actually did that. So I went through, there was a little bit of steelite on here, but I just used acetone and cleaned everything up so it was all shiny metal. I also cleaned the inside of the housing as best as I could just to get everything clean. And then we sat it up there with that sealer. And then they just got these hand tight because there is a little bit of a cure time for the right stuff. So they said to do it hand tight and then after an hour torque it down. So I did that, and then my dad went back through last night and torqued them all down, so all that's set. So this third member is completely installed, and axles can actually be installed on this housing at any point now. The next step back here is to be getting the drive shaft installed though. All it is just we have to mate it up there, bolt up the carrier bearing right here, and then connect it to the trans as well. I don't know if I've really talked about the trans much in the videos, but this is a Turbo 400 built by Maximum Transmissions. It's the reed case with the double bearing output shaft. This transmission is pretty much bulletproof. It should take the power of the LS1 perfectly fine. We didn't want to have any issues with the tranny. That's why we got a super nice tranny that's going to hold up to the power super easily. When my dad built a buggy when Krish and I were just kids, he had a bunch of transmission issues, so he didn't want to have to deal with that anymore, so we just got the nicest transmission we could. So there should be no issues there. But the next step is going to be getting this drive shaft in, so I'm going to get to doing that right now. And just like that, the drive shaft is all in. This is a two-piece drive shaft, so we are utilizing a carrier bearing right here off the stock cross member. But besides that, this drive shaft is pretty simple, just 1350 yokes on it, and that's pretty much it. That's going to wrap it up for this video though. We got a lot of loose ends tied up on the truck. We got those rear panels on, we got the third member in, and we got the drive shaft in. A lot of the rear half of the truck's actually done for now. To get this thing running and driving, we need to get the axles in the housing, get gear oil on there, And then with the brake lines, we have to tinker with those a little bit. Everything's there, we just have to make sure it's all tight. Get brake fluid in there and then bleed the brakes. We also have to deal with the coolant hoses a little bit, get those all ran and made. And then from there, this thing should be running and driving. The next video on this truck is going to be actually getting it to run right. We have some parts coming in the mail for the fuel system. That should make it run a lot better than it was. It's still not going to be perfect until we get a tune on the truck, but it'll be a lot better than it was since it was running super rich last time. But until then, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.